Welcome back to Squawk. President Biden yesterday saying that he won't let the GOP use the debt ceiling as a bargaining chip. And as drama ramps up, our next guest says it's time for America to rein in spending. Joining us right now is Texas Congressman Jodey Arrington, chairman of the Budget Committee. Good morning to you. You think spending is about to get out of control? I kind of feel like it's almost impossible at this point for there to be meaningful spending.
Yeah, well, spending's been out of control for a while. I'm not going to say that Republicans haven't made their contribution to our unsustainable debt trajectory and the fiscal irresponsibility in Washington. But for 5 years, or for the last 2 years rather, $5 trillion, an inflationary firestorm, soaring interest rates, and an economy that's teetering on recession, and many predict will have a sustained recession. And then you have a debt crisis situation on the horizon that would wreak havoc not only on the economy, it would undermine our security, and quite frankly, I think it is the crisis of crises. I think it is the biggest long-term threat to our way of life in America. So we have to take opportunities like this to evaluate our debt position, our financial health as a nation, and then we need to make course corrections. It's what every American family does, business does, state and local government. I think it's what Americans expect from our president and from all of our leaders.
Chairman, by the way, I don't disagree with you. I think the debt issue is a meaningful one. I remember when I wrote the book Too Big to Fail, the phrase "too big to fail" was used only in the sort of context of banks. Today we use it in the context of municipalities, cities, and in fact countries. So I fear and worry about that issue. The question, though, that I'd ask you is whether you think that this debt ceiling is going to be used as a bargaining chip in some way that could turn dangerous.
I believe it will, and I believe it has to, because, and just a few numbers for context for your viewers, $16 trillion over the next 10 years, half of that is interest. We'll spend more on interest payments on the debt than on all of national defense. That'll be over $1 trillion annual spend, and then it's twice the size of our economy in 30 years. So we have to do something to put common sense spending controls or other fiscal reforms. And it's happened.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, if you think about the full faith and credit of the United States, and then you start to think about the debt ceiling, and you start to think about the way the rest of the world thinks about our country, if we get into a terrible sort of midnight situation, as we have, unfortunately, all too often, what that actually ultimately does to the cost of credit and to all of these other issues.
Yeah, well, I think what could happen to the cost of credit is for our creditors and future investors to say, I don't think that America can pay back their debts. I don't think at $2.7 trillion in annual deficits, which is in 10 years, I don't think that their full faith and credit is good anyway. So to me, you've got a debt crisis looming over the heads of our children and this country, and you've got an opportunity to have an adult conversation, and we're not going to default on our debt. We're going to protect the full faith and credit of the United States.